There's a haunting whisper that winds its way through the dark forests, the quiet villages, and the ancient stories passed down through generations. It's a whisper that tells of women who possessed strange powers, who lived on the edges of society, and who, for reasons that are both mysterious and terrifying, were cursed. These whispers speak of witches, beings both feared and misunderstood, whose tales of curses and doom have echoed through the centuries, sending chills down the spines of those who hear them. In every corner of the world, there are stories of witches. They are women, and sometimes men, who hold a connection to forces beyond the understanding of ordinary people. They are midwives and healers, herbalists, and wise women who, for reasons often unknown, find themselves standing on the other side of the line that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. They are revered for their knowledge, yet feared for their power. And when fear turns to suspicion, these women are often cursed, marked by society as witches, and condemned to a fate as dark as the shadows they are believed to control. These stories are not merely tales of power, but of the heavy, often unbearable, weight that comes with it. In many cultures, witches are believed to have been born with their powers, destined from birth to walk a path that others would never dare tread. But with that power comes a curse, a shadow that looms over their lives, casting them out from the warmth of the community and into the cold isolation of the unknown. They are cursed to be alone, to be misunderstood, and often, to meet a fate that is as tragic as it is inevitable. The curses associated with witches are as varied as the cultures that tell their stories. In some, the curse is a mark of destiny, a fate that was sealed the moment the witch was born. In others, it is a punishment, a cruel twist of fate for a transgression real or imagined. The curse might manifest as an unending life filled with sorrow, a body that twists and transforms into something monstrous, or a life of endless wandering, never able to rest or find peace. These curses are not just afflictions, but reflections of the fears and anxieties of the societies that created them. In Europe, where the witch hunts of the 16th and 17th centuries left an indelible mark on history, the idea of the cursed witch took on a particularly terrifying form. Women who were believed to be witches were not only accused of casting spells and communing with the devil, but were also believed to be cursed themselves. They were seen as bringers of doom, whose very presence could bring disaster to a village, a family, or a crop. The curse was not just on the witch herself, but on everything and everyone around her. This belief in the cursed witch led to the persecution and execution of countless women, whose only crime was being different or being feared. But the story of the cursed witch is not just a European one. In Africa, the idea of witchcraft is deeply intertwined with the notion of curses. Here, witches are believed to possess the power to curse others, to bring misfortune and illness upon those they envy or hate. But they are also believed to be cursed themselves, bound to a life of secrecy and fear, forever walking the line between the seen and the unseen. The curses they carry are often inherited, passed down through generations, marking a family as tainted, doomed to suffer the consequences of a pact made long ago or a wrong that was never righted. In Native American folklore, the figure of the witch is also shrouded in mystery and fear. Here, witches are often seen as those who have broken with the natural order, who have used their knowledge of the earth and the spirits to harm rather than heal. They are cursed to live in the shadows, to be forever separated from the community that once welcomed them. Their curses are powerful and terrifying, bringing sickness, death, and disaster to those who cross their path. Yet, they are also pitted, for their power comes with a price, a life of isolation, fear, and ultimately, doom. Across Asia, the stories of cursed witches take on a different form. In Japan, the figure of the witch is often intertwined with the yurei, or vengeful spirits. These are women who, in life, were wronged or betrayed, and in death, became witches, cursed to wander the earth seeking vengeance. Their curses are born of anger and sorrow, and they are said to bring death to those who encounter them. In India, the Chudail is a witch whose curse is linked to her tragic death. She is doomed to haunt the living, bringing misfortune to all who see her. These witches are feared, not just for the curses they cast, but for the curses they themselves carry, a curse that binds them to the earth, unable to find peace in death. The stories of cursed witches are more than just tales of magic and mystery. They are reflections of the fears and anxieties of the societies that tell them. They speak of the dangers of power, of the consequences of stepping outside the boundaries of what is considered normal or acceptable. They are cautionary tales, warning of the dangers of envy, anger, and ambition. But they are also stories of tragedy, of women who, for reasons often beyond their control, find themselves cursed, marked by society as different, and condemned to a fate they cannot escape. These stories evoke a deep sense of sorrow and pity for the witches who are cursed, even as they terrify us. The idea that a person could be marked from birth, or through a single act, to live a life of misery and fear, touches something primal in us. It speaks to our own fears of being cast out, of being misunderstood, of being cursed. And yet, these stories also offer a kind of comfort, for they remind us that we are not alone in our fears and our suffering. The cursed witches of folklore are not just figures of fear, but symbols of the human condition, of the loneliness, the sorrow, and the struggles that we all face. There's something hauntingly ancient in the whispers of the wind through the trees, and the way the moon casts its silver light on the earth, and the crackling of fire as it dances in the dark. These are the elements that have always been, long before cities rose and civilizations thrived. They hold the memories of a time when the world was raw, wild, and mysterious, a time when the line between the seen and the unseen was thin, and the power of nature was both feared and revered. It was in this time that the roots of witchcraft began to take hold, like the twisting vines of an old, gnarled tree, reaching deep into the earth and into the hearts of those who lived close to the land. Witchcraft did not spring forth from darkness, it grew from the light of the natural world, from the understanding that the earth held power, and that power could be harnessed by those who knew its secrets. In the earliest days, those who would later be called witches were simply the wise ones, the healers, the keepers of knowledge. They were the ones who understood the rhythms of the earth, the cycles of the moon, and the language of the wind. They knew which herbs could heal and which could harm, how to read the stars to guide the lost, and how to speak to the spirits that dwelled in the trees and streams. Their power was not in dark magic, but in their deep connection to the world around them. In ancient mythologies, these wise ones appear in many forms. They are the goddesses of the earth, the mothers of creation, the guardians of life and death. In Greek mythology, Hecate was a goddess of magic, a protector of witches, who stood at the crossroads between life and death, light and darkness. She held the torches that lit the way through the night, guiding those who sought her wisdom. In Norse mythology, the Volva were seeresses, women who could see the future and communicate with the spirits. They were respected and feared for their abilities, seen as both blessed and cursed by their knowledge. These figures were not evil, they were powerful, revered, and sometimes deeply lonely. As time passed and societies grew more complex, the role of these wise ones began to change. The rise of organized religions brought new gods, new beliefs, and with them, a shift in how these ancient powers were perceived. The connection to nature, once seen as a source of strength and wisdom, began to be viewed with suspicion. Paganism, the worship of the old gods and the earth itself, was pushed to the margins as new religious orders sought to assert control. The wise women and men, who had once been the healers and protectors, became outsiders, their knowledge feared rather than respected. In the stories of old, witches began to take on a darker form. No longer just healers or seers, they were depicted as beings who could bend the natural world to their will, for good or ill. They were said to possess the power to summon storms, to curse crops, to bring death with a single word. These tales were born not just from fear, but from the awe that the power of nature inspired. Witches became the embodiment of the wild, untamed forces of the earth, forces that could not be controlled, only respected or feared. The connection between witchcraft and nature is woven through every story, every legend, like a thread that ties the present to the past. In the ancient world, nature was everything. It was life and death, the source of food and shelter, and the giver of both blessings and curses. To understand nature was to understand the very essence of existence, and those who held that knowledge were both revered and feared. They were seen as mediators between the human world and the natural world, able to communicate with spirits, to harness the energy of the earth, and to use it for purposes that others could only guess at. Paganism, the worship of nature and the old gods, was the soil from which witchcraft grew. In every ancient culture, there are traces of this worship, this reverence for the earth and the powers that dwell within it. The Druids of the Celtic world, the shamans of Siberia, the medicine women of the Americas, all practiced forms of what we would now call witchcraft. They were the keepers of the old ways, the ones who knew the rituals, the chants, the offerings that would appease the spirits and bring favor from the gods. Their power was not just in their knowledge, but in their connection to something greater, something that lay beyond the reach of ordinary understanding. But as the world changed, so too did the perception of these ancient practices. The rise of monotheistic religions brought with it a new order, one that had little room for the old gods and the old ways. Paganism was declared heresy, and those who practiced the old arts were cast out, labeled as witches, sorcerers, and worse. What had once been a sacred connection to the earth became a mark of evil, a sign of a pact with dark forces. The wise women, the healers, the seers, those who had once been respected and sought after, became targets of fear, suspicion, and violence. The roots of witchcraft are as old as humanity itself, as ancient as the earth we walk on. They reach back to a time when the world was new, and the mysteries of life and death were not yet fully understood. They grew from the understanding that the earth was alive, that it held power, and that power could be both a blessing and a curse. Those who knew how to harness that power, who could speak the language of the earth, were both revered and feared, loved and hated, in equal measure. In the ancient stories, witches are not just figures of fear, they are reminders of the power of the natural world, and of the deep connection that once existed between humanity and the earth. They are the keepers of the old ways, the last remnants of a time when magic was real, when the boundaries between the seen and the unseen were thin, and when the earth itself was a living, breathing being, full of mystery and power. Their tales remind us that the world is full of wonders that we cannot fully understand, and that the power of nature, and those who are connected to it, is something that we must respect, even as it fills us with awe and fear. In the shadows of history, where fear mingles with misunderstanding, there lies a story as old as time itself, a story of women who, for reasons both mysterious and tragic, were branded as witches. The word witch has long carried with it the weight of suspicion, danger, and power, and it is a word that, more often than not, has been used to describe women. But why? What is it about women that made them the primary targets of such a chilling accusation? The answer is rooted in the deep, often painful, complexities of society's perceptions and the roles women were forced to play in a world that feared what it could not control. From the earliest days, women have been closely associated with the mysteries of life and death. They are the givers of life, the caretakers, the ones who hold the power to nurture or to destroy. This connection to the cycle of life placed women in a position of both reverence and fear. They were seen as keepers of ancient knowledge, of secrets passed down through generations, knowledge that could heal or harm. In a world where survival often depended on understanding the natural world, women held a kind of power that was both vital and terrifying. But as societies grew and became more structured, this power became something to be feared, something to be controlled. The natural abilities and knowledge that women possessed were no longer seen as a blessing but as a threat. In a world where power was increasingly being centralized in the hands of men, women who did not fit the mold, who were too knowledgeable, too independent, too different, became targets of suspicion. They were accused of witchcraft not because they were truly evil, but because they represented something that society could not understand, and therefore feared. The perception of women as being connected to the supernatural is something that has been present in nearly every culture. Whether it was the wise women of Europe, the shamans of Africa, or the medicine women of the Americas, women were often seen as being closer to the spiritual world. This was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it gave them a respected place in their communities as healers and spiritual leaders. On the other hand, it made them vulnerable to accusations of witchcraft when things went wrong. In times of crisis, when crops failed, when disease spread, or when misfortune struck, it was often the women who were blamed. Their knowledge of herbs, of healing, of the mysteries of life and death, which once made them invaluable, now made them suspects. They were accused of being witches, of using their knowledge to harm rather than to heal. The very qualities that made them powerful also made them targets. And once accused, there was little hope of escape. The label of witch was one that stuck, and it was a label that carried with it the weight of doom. But the story of women and witchcraft is not just one of fear and accusation. It is also a story of power dynamics and gender roles that have shaped the way society views women. In a patriarchal world, where men held most of the power, women were often seen as subordinate, as beings who needed to be controlled. Their connection to the natural world, to the cycles of life and death, was something that could not be easily understood or controlled by the male-dominated society. And so, rather than being respected for their knowledge and abilities, they were often feared and demonized. The archetype of the witch became a way for society to express its fear of women who stepped outside the boundaries of what was considered acceptable. A woman who was too independent, too outspoken, too knowledgeable, or too different was seen as a threat. She was labeled as a witch, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she represented something that society could not control. The witch became a symbol of everything that was feared about women: their power, their independence, their connection to the natural world. This fear was further fueled by the rigid gender roles that defined society. Women were expected to be passive, obedient, and subservient. Those who did not conform to these roles were often punished. The label of witch became a convenient way to control women, to keep them in their place. It was a way to assert power over those who were seen as challenging the status quo. The witch hunts that swept through Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries are perhaps the most tragic example of this. Thousands of women were accused, tortured, and executed, not because they were truly witches, but because they were different, because they represented a threat to the established order. But even in the face of such fear and persecution, the story of women and witchcraft is also one of resilience and strength. The women who were accused of being witches were often those who dared to be different, who dared to live outside the confines of what society expected of them. They were healers, midwives, herbalists, and wise women who held onto their knowledge and their power, even when it meant facing persecution. They were women who refused to be controlled, who refused to be silenced. The connection between women and witchcraft is not just a story of fear and accusation, it is a story of power, of the power that women have always held, and of the fears that this power has inspired in a world that has sought to control them. It is a story of the complexities of gender roles, of the ways in which society has sought to define and confine women, and of the ways in which women have resisted these confines. The witch is not just a figure of fear, she is a symbol of the power, the resilience, and the strength of women throughout history. And so, the story of women and witchcraft is a story that continues to resonate, a story that still has the power to send shivers down the spine. It is a story that reminds us of the dangers of fear, of the ways in which society has sought to control what it cannot understand, and of the incredible strength of those who have been labeled as different, as other, as witches. In the dark corners of the ancient European forests, where the shadows of trees stretch long and the wind whispers through the leaves, there live stories of witches who have been cursed, their lives twisted by fate, fear, and the force of powerful beliefs. These stories, passed down through generations, are not just tales of magic and mystery, they are reflections of a time when the unknown was a source of terror, and when those who were different were often marked as dangerous, as cursed. Among these figures, one name stands out, chilling and unforgettable: Baba Yaga. In the heart of Slavic folklore, Baba Yaga is no ordinary witch. She is a fearsome figure, an old woman with a bony frame and iron teeth, living in a hut that stands on chicken legs, turning to face those who dare approach her with the entrance always out of reach. Her presence in the forest is a warning, a reminder of the thin line between the natural world and the supernatural, between life and death. But Baba Yaga is not just a symbol of fear. She is a complex character, embodying the duality of the witch in European folklore. To some, she is a monstrous figure, devouring those who wander too close. To others, she is a wise old woman, possessing knowledge that can heal, guide, or even offer a second chance to the brave souls who can pass her tests. Yet, no matter how she is portrayed, Baba Yaga remains cursed by her very nature, an outcast living on the fringes of society, feared and respected, but never truly understood or embraced. The tales of Baba Yaga speak to the fear of the unknown, of the woman who lives alone, who controls forces beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. She is not evil for the sake of evil, but she is cursed by the role she plays in the stories of those who fear her. Her curse is her isolation, her separation from the rest of humanity, and the suspicion that surrounds her. She is a witch, yes, but she is also a reflection of the fears that have long haunted the human soul, the fear of the forest, of the wild, of the woman who refuses to conform. Across the continent, in the heart of France, another tale emerges, this one rooted not in the deep forests, but in the glittering and dangerous world of the royal court. La Voisin, a name that sends shivers down the spine, was a woman whose life was marked by the darkness of her deeds and the curse that followed her until her tragic end. In the shadow of King Louis XIV's reign, La Voisin was a figure who embodied the fear and suspicion of witchcraft that permeated European society. She was not a witch in the traditional sense, with a cauldron and a pointed hat, but rather a woman who dealt in poisons, dark rituals, and the secrets of the court. Her curse was not one of birth, but one of choices, of being drawn into a world where power, greed, and fear ruled. La Voisin's name became synonymous with the darker side of human nature, with the hidden sins of the powerful and the lengths they would go to secure their desires. The tale of La Voisin is a reminder of how witchcraft, in the European mind, became intertwined with curses, not just of magic, but of moral corruption. She was a woman who wielded power, but it was a power that came with a heavy price. Her end was as dark as her life, executed for her crimes, her name forever linked with the fears and superstitions of her time. She was cursed not just by her actions, but by the society that created her, that allowed her to rise and then eagerly destroyed her when she became too dangerous. In these stories, the shadow of Christianity looms large, casting witches not just as figures of fear, but as beings cursed by God, condemned for their association with the devil, for their refusal to conform to the new order that Christianity brought to Europe. The Church, in its mission to root out paganism and heresy, painted witches as agents of evil, their powers a sign of their pact with dark forces. This portrayal added a new layer of curse to the figure of the witch, a spiritual curse, one that damned their souls as well as their bodies. Witches, once seen as wise women, healers, or figures connected to the natural world, were now portrayed as cursed beings, twisted by their association with the devil. The fear of witchcraft became a fear of eternal damnation, of the soul being lost to the fires of hell. This fear was not just for the witches themselves, but for the society that might be tainted by their presence. The witch hunts that swept across Europe were fueled by this fear, by the belief that witches were cursed and needed to be eradicated to save the souls of the community. The image of the cursed witch, twisted and dark, became a powerful tool in the hands of those who sought to control society through fear. It was a way to explain the unexplainable, to place blame for misfortune, disease, and death on those who were already vulnerable. Women, especially those who were different, who lived alone, who practiced the old ways, became easy targets. They were cursed not by any real magic, but by the beliefs of the society around them. In the end, the stories of cursed witches in European folklore are tales of fear, power, and the human tendency to label what is not understood as dangerous. Baba Yaga and La Voisin, though separated by culture and time, share the same fate, cursed by a world that feared their power and their difference. They are reminders of the dangers of superstition, of the ease with which fear can turn to violence, and of the enduring power of stories to shape how we see the world and those who live on its edges. In the vast landscapes of Africa, where the earth breathes with the rhythm of life, where the skies stretch endlessly, and the forests whisper ancient secrets, there exists a belief that transcends time, a belief in the power of curses and the witches who wield them. These beliefs are woven into the very fabric of African folklore, where the line between the seen and unseen is thin, and where the fear of the unknown can grip a heart with cold fingers. In many African cultures, the figure of the witch is not just someone to be feared, but someone who holds immense power, a power that can shape destinies, bring forth suffering, or even alter the course of life itself. The witch is often seen as a master of curses, able to inflict pain or misfortune on those who cross them. But what is even more chilling is the belief that these curses are not just words or actions, but living forces that cling to the soul, dragging it into despair. Among the many who hold such power, the witch doctors stand as enigmatic figures, feared and revered in equal measure. They are the keepers of ancient knowledge, of rituals that have been passed down through generations, shrouded in mystery. These witch doctors are believed to have the ability to harness the forces of nature, to command spirits, and to cast curses that can bring a person to their knees. But their power comes with a price, for the curses they cast are said to be binding, irreversible, and sometimes deadly. In the heart of African folklore, tales of cursed witches abound, stories that are whispered around fires, shared in the quiet of night, when the world is still, and the weight of the unseen presses down on the living. One such tale comes from the forests of West Africa, where the story of a woman named Nyam is told. Nyam was known for her beauty and her skill in healing, but as is often the case in these stories, beauty and power can draw envy and fear. Accusations began to swirl around Nyam, whispers that she was not just a healer but a witch, that her power came not from the gods but from darker forces. The villagers, gripped by fear and suspicion, turned against her, convinced that she had cursed their crops, causing them to fail. It didn't matter that there was no proof, no evidence of her wrongdoing. The fear was enough. Nyam was dragged from her home, her pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. She was cursed by the very people she had once helped, cursed to wander the earth, never to find peace, never to return to the village she once called home. Nyam's story is one of many, reflecting the deep fear that curses can evoke in the hearts of people. In these tales, the curse is not just a punishment but a fate worse than death, a lingering shadow that haunts the cursed, stripping away their humanity, leaving them as nothing more than ghosts in the eyes of those who once knew them. These cursed witches are often portrayed as tragic figures, caught in a web of fear and misunderstanding, their lives forever altered by the power of a single word, witch. In the eastern regions of Africa, another tale is told, this one of a man named Mzi, a respected elder in his community. Mzi was known for his wisdom and his connection to the spirits, and many came to him seeking guidance. But as with Nyam, his power made him a target. A rival, jealous of Mzi's influence, spread rumors that Mzi was a witch, that he had used his power to curse the children of the village, causing them to fall ill. The villagers, desperate to protect their families, turned on Mzi, demanding that he lift the curse. Mzi, knowing that he had done nothing wrong, refused to admit to the accusations. But the fear of the curse was too strong. The villagers, in their desperation, forced Mzi to undergo a ritual to prove his innocence. But the ritual was a trap, designed to kill those who were accused. Mzi, despite his wisdom, could not escape the curse that had been placed upon him. He died, not because he was guilty, but because the fear of his supposed power was greater than the truth. Mzi's tale is a stark reminder of how the fear of witchcraft and curses can destroy even the most respected members of a community. The belief in curses is so strong that it can turn friends into enemies, wisdom into suspicion, and life into death. The power of the curse lies not just in its effect, but in the belief that it is real, that it can reach beyond the physical world to touch the very soul of a person. In African folklore, these stories are not just warnings but reflections of the deep-seated fears that have shaped societies for centuries. The witch, the curse, the witch doctor, these are not just characters in a story, but symbols of the forces that people have long struggled to understand and control. The curse is a manifestation of that struggle, a way to explain the unexplainable, to give form to the fears that lurk in the shadows. But while these tales are filled with fear and tragedy, they are also stories of resilience. The cursed witches of African folklore are often those who refuse to be broken, who continue to fight against the forces that have sought to destroy them. They are reminders that even in the face of the most powerful curses, there is still the possibility of redemption, of finding a way to break free from the chains that bind them. And so, the stories of cursed witches in African folklore continue to be told, passed down through generations as a way to make sense of the world, to find meaning in the face of fear, and to remind us all of the power that lies within the human spirit, even when that power is misunderstood, feared, and cursed. The fire crackles in the quiet night, sending sparks up into the dark sky, where the stars shimmer like silent witnesses to the tales being told. Around the fire, the elders sit, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames, their voices heavy with the weight of stories passed down through generations. These stories are not just for entertainment, they carry the lessons, the warnings, and the mysteries of the world that surrounds them. Among these tales, the ones that send a chill down the spine are those of witches, those who have the power to curse, to bring doom upon those who cross them. In the vast landscapes of Native American traditions, where every mountain, river, and tree has its spirit, the concept of witches and sorcery is woven into the fabric of life. Witches are not always the hunched-over figures stirring pots in darkened rooms. They are often those who walk among the people, hidden in plain sight, their powers unknown until it is too late. The fear of these witches is not just in the magic they wield, but in the curses they cast, curses that can change the course of a life, bring suffering, or even cause death. One of the most feared and revered figures in these stories is the Skinwalker. Among the Navajo, the Skinwalker is a witch with the ability to transform into an animal, taking on its form and abilities. But this power comes at a terrible price. To become a Skinwalker, one must perform a forbidden act, often involving the death of a loved one. This act not only grants them power but curses them, twisting their soul and binding them to a life of darkness. The Skinwalker is cursed to live in the shadows, feared and hunted, never able to return to the life they once knew. The stories of the Skinwalker are not just tales of terror, they are warnings. To become a Skinwalker is to embrace a curse that cannot be undone, to take on a burden that will haunt the witch until the end of their days. The curse is not just in the transformation, but in the isolation that follows. The Skinwalker, once a member of the community, becomes an outcast, forced to live on the fringes, feared by all. The curse strips them of their humanity, leaving them as little more than a shadow, a figure that haunts the edges of the firelight. In the northeastern woodlands, the stories of witches take a different form. Among the Iroquois, there is a tale of a woman named Tata. Tata was known for her beauty and her skill in the art of healing, but there was something about her that made people uneasy. Some said it was her eyes, which seemed to see too much, or the way she moved, too silently, as if she were more shadow than flesh. When crops began to fail and children fell ill, the whispers began. Tata was a witch, a woman who had cursed the land. The fear of Tata grew until it could no longer be ignored. The villagers, desperate to save their families, confronted her, demanding that she lift the curse. But Tata only smiled, a sad, knowing smile, and refused to speak. Her silence was taken as proof of her guilt. The villagers, terrified of what she might do next, forced her into the woods, where they believed she belonged. As she disappeared into the shadows, they thought the curse would lift. But the land remained barren, and the sickness spread. Tata's story is a reminder of how the fear of witchcraft and curses can tear a community apart. The curse was not just in the land, but in the minds of the people, who were willing to turn on one of their own to save themselves. Tata, whether she was truly a witch or just a victim of fear, was cursed to live in exile, her name forever linked with the suffering of the village. Her story is told as a warning that the true curse may lie not in the witch, but in the fear that drives people to do terrible things. In the deserts of the Southwest, the Apache tell stories of the owl witch, a figure of fear and doom. The owl is a creature of the night, a silent hunter whose cry is said to foretell death. The owl witch is believed to have the power to control these creatures, to send them to do her bidding. When the owl witch curses someone, it is said that the owls will come, silent and deadly, to take the cursed soul away. The curse of the owl witch is one of inevitable doom, a fate that cannot be escaped. The fear of the owl witch is so strong that even the mention of her name is enough to cause a shiver of fear. She is a figure who embodies the unknown, the dark, and the inevitability of death. The curse she casts is not just on the individual, but on the entire community, for the presence of an owl witch means that death is near. The curse spreads like a shadow, darkening the hearts of those who hear her name, filling them with dread. The owl witch is not just a story, but a force, a reminder that there are things in the world that cannot be controlled or understood. The stories of witches and sorcery in Native American folklore are tales of fear, power, and the unknown. They are reminders that the world is full of mysteries, of forces that lie just beyond the reach of understanding. Witches, in these stories, are not just figures of evil, they are beings who have made choices, who have embraced the power that comes with a curse, and who must live with the consequences. The curses they cast are not just punishments, but reflections of the fears and beliefs of the people who tell their stories. As the fire burns low and the night deepens, these stories continue to be told, passed down from one generation to the next. They are stories that remind us of the power of belief, of the fear of the unknown, and of the way that a curse, once cast, can change everything. In the quiet of the night, as the stars watch over the world, the tales of witches and their curses linger in the air, a reminder that some things are meant to be feared, and that the power of a story is as real as the curses it describes. In the misty mountains of Japan, where the ancient forests hold secrets older than time, there are stories that cling to the air, stories of spirits that watch from the shadows and of curses that can shatter a life in an instant. Among these tales, the yokai stand out, creatures of the night, beings that are neither human nor god, but something in between. These yokai are feared, for they possess powers that can twist reality, and when a yokai casts a curse, it is as if the world itself trembles. The yokai are not just mischievous spirits, they are beings with deep connections to the emotions and fears of humans. Some are born from sorrow, others from rage, and their curses often reflect the darkest aspects of human nature. One of the most feared yokai is the Yukiana, the Snow Woman. She appears on cold, moonlit nights, her beauty is striking as the winter landscape. But beneath her serene exterior lies a curse that brings death to those who encounter her. It is said that those who see the Yukiana are frozen by her gaze, their hearts turning to ice as they succumb to her cold embrace. Her curse is one of isolation and despair, a reflection of the loneliness that haunts her own soul. The tales of the Yukiana are whispered in hushed tones, a reminder of the thin line between beauty and terror, between life and death. Her curse is not just a punishment, but a manifestation of the sorrow that binds her to the earth, unable to move on, unable to find peace. The Yukiana story is one of many that illustrate the power of curses in Japanese folklore, where the spirits of the land hold sway over the fate of humans, and where a single encounter can change everything. In the dense forests of India, another figure haunts the dreams of those who stray too far from the safety of their homes. The Chudale is a spirit of vengeance, a woman who died with a broken heart, wronged by those she loved. Her spirit lingers, unable to find rest, consumed by the need to inflict her pain on others. The Chudale is often depicted as a beautiful woman with long, flowing hair that hides her twisted feet, a sign of the curse that binds her. She lures men with her beauty, only to reveal her true form and drain their life force, leaving them as empty shells. The Chudale's curse is one born of betrayal, a reflection of the injustices she faced in life. Her story is one of pain and revenge, of a love turned sour and twisted into something dark and unforgiving. The Chudale's curse is not just a manifestation of her own suffering, but a warning to others, a reminder that betrayal and heartbreak can leave scars that last beyond death. In the shadowy corners of Indian folklore, the Chudale stands as a symbol of the power of a curse to transcend the boundaries of life and death, to reach into the very soul of a person and tear it apart. Across Asia, the tales of witches and sorcery take on many forms, each shaped by the culture and beliefs of the people who tell them. In China, there are stories of fox spirits, or huli jing, who can transform into beautiful women to seduce men. These spirits are often seen as both benevolent and malevolent, capable of bringing good fortune or disaster depending on their mood. The huli jing's curse is one of deception, of weaving illusions so convincing that their victims are unable to see the truth until it is too late. The curse of the huli jing is a reminder that not everything is as it seems, that beauty can hide danger, and that the most dangerous curses are the ones that come with a smile. The influence of religion on these beliefs is profound. In Japan, Shintoism teaches that spirits inhabit all things, from the mountains to the rivers, and that these spirits must be respected and appeased. The yokai, as manifestations of these spirits, are deeply connected to the natural world, and their curses often reflect the balance, or imbalance, of nature. In India, Hinduism offers a complex view of the afterlife, where the actions of one's life can result in reincarnation as a spirit, cursed to roam the earth until their wrongs are righted. The Chudale's curse is a reflection of this belief, a manifestation of the karmic consequences of betrayal and sorrow. Buddhism, too, plays a role in shaping the understanding of curses in Asia. The concept of karma, the idea that one's actions have consequences that ripple through time, is central to many of these stories. A witch's curse in Buddhist belief is not just an act of malice, but a reflection of the balance of karma, a way for the universe to correct itself. The curses in these tales are not just punishments, but lessons, reminders that every action has a consequence, and that those who wield power must do so with care. In the shadowy temples of Thailand, the Kraju is a figure of horror, a woman cursed to live as a floating head, trailing her entrails behind her as she searches for blood. The Kraju's curse is one of eternal hunger, a punishment for sins committed in a past life. She is condemned to roam the night, driven by a need she cannot control, her humanity lost to the curse that binds her. The Kraju's story is a chilling reminder of the consequences of unchecked desire, of the way a curse can strip away everything that makes a person human, leaving only the raw, primal need for survival. The stories of witches and curses across Asia are tales of fear, power, and the unknown. They are reminders that the world is full of mysteries, of forces that lie just beyond the reach of understanding. Witches, in these stories, are not just figures of evil, they are beings who have made choices, who have embraced the power that comes with a curse, and who must live with the consequences. The curses they cast are not just punishments, but reflections of the fears and beliefs of the people who tell their stories. In the quiet moments, when the wind whispers through the trees and the shadows grow long, these stories come alive. They are not just tales of terror, but lessons, reminders of the power of belief, and the way that a curse, once cast, can change everything. In the darkness of the night, as the stars watch over the world, the tales of witches and their curses linger in the air, a reminder that some things are meant to be feared, and that the power of a story is as real as the curses it describes. In the silent deserts of the Middle East, where the wind whispers through the sand dunes and the night is as dark as a forgotten memory, stories of witches are etched into the very fabric of the land. These witches, known as Sahira, are not just women who wield magic, they are beings feared and respected, for they possess the power to alter fate with a single word. Their curses are said to be the most feared of all, for they do not just bring misfortune, they bring doom, an inescapable fate that haunts the soul. In the quiet corners of ancient cities, where the streets are narrow and the shadows are long, there are tales of women who could speak to the jinn, those mysterious beings of smokeless fire. These women were said to have powers beyond human understanding, able to command the jinn to do their bidding. But with this power came a terrible price, for the jinn are known to be unpredictable, their loyalty fickle. A witch who angered the jinn could find herself cursed, her life twisted into something unrecognizable, her soul bound to the will of these powerful beings. One of the most haunting tales is that of a woman named Layla, who lived in a small village at the edge of the desert. Layla was known for her beauty, but also for her strange abilities. It was said that she could summon the jinn to her side, that she could speak words that bent reality to her will. But this power made her both feared and envied. When a terrible drought struck the village, the people turned to Layla, demanding that she use her magic to bring rain. But Layla, with sadness in her eyes, refused. She knew the dangers of playing with such power, of asking the jinn for favors. Angered by her refusal, the villagers accused her of cursing the land, of bringing the drought upon them. Desperate and afraid, the villagers took matters into their own hands. They captured Layla, binding her in chains, and dragged her into the desert. There, beneath the burning sun, they demanded that she lift the curse. But Layla, knowing that the curse was not hers to lift, remained silent. In their fury, the villagers left her to die, believing that her death would end their suffering. But as they turned away, a sandstorm rose from the horizon, a swirling mass of fury that seemed to come from nowhere. The storm consumed the village, burying it beneath the sands, leaving nothing behind but the echoes of the past. Layla's curse was not one she had cast, but one born of fear and ignorance. The storm that destroyed the village was not a punishment from the jinn, but a reflection of the anger and hatred that had consumed the people. Layla's story is a reminder that the true power of a curse lies not in the words spoken, but in the emotions that drive them. In the vast emptiness of the desert, her name is still whispered, a symbol of the dangers of letting fear and envy dictate one's actions. In the bustling markets of ancient Baghdad, another tale of witchcraft and curses lingers. It is said that there was once a woman named Zainab, known for her knowledge of herbs and potions. Zainab was not a witch in the traditional sense. She did not summon jinn or cast spells. But her knowledge of the natural world was so profound that many believed she must be in league with dark forces. Her remedies could cure the sick, but they could also poison. Her brews could bring love, but they could also bring death. It was this duality that made Zainab both respected and feared. One day, a wealthy merchant came to Zainab, begging her for a potion that would make him invincible in battle. Zainab, knowing the consequences of such power, refused. But the merchant, desperate and arrogant, threatened to ruin her if she did not comply. Reluctantly, Zainab gave him a potion, warning him of the dangers. The merchant, blinded by greed, ignored her warnings and drank the potion before going into battle. At first, it seemed the potion had worked, for he fought with a strength and ferocity that none could match. But as the battle raged on, the merchant began to change. His skin grew pale, his eyes wild, and his heart hardened to stone. He became a monster, driven by bloodlust, unable to stop killing even when the battle was won. The curse of the potion was not in the ingredients, but in the greed and arrogance of the man who took it. Zainab's warning had been clear, but the merchant had ignored it, believing that he could control the power she had given him. In the end, it was his own desires that destroyed him, turning him into something less than human. Zainab's story is a reminder that the power of a curse lies not in the witch who casts it, but in the heart of the one who is cursed. The influence of Islamic beliefs on these stories is profound. In Islam, witchcraft is considered a great sin, for it involves tampering with the natural order, seeking power that belongs only to God. The jinn, while powerful, are also servants of God, and to command them is to challenge divine authority. A witch who seeks to control the jinn is not just playing with fire, she is challenging the very foundations of the universe. The curses that result from such actions are not just punishments, but reminders of the dangers of overstepping one's bounds. The story of Layla and Zainab are just two examples of how witchcraft and curses are portrayed in Middle Eastern folklore. These tales are not just about the power of magic, but about the consequences of seeking power for its own sake. They are stories that remind us of the fragility of life, of the way that a single decision can change everything. In the quiet moments, when the world seems still, the tales of these witches and their curses come alive, a reminder of the power of belief and the dangers of tampering with forces beyond our understanding. In the vast deserts and ancient cities of the Middle East, the stories of witches and their curses are woven into the very fabric of the land. They are tales of fear, power, and the unknown, reminders that there are forces in the world that cannot be controlled, and that those who seek to do so often pay a terrible price. The witches of the Middle East are not just figures of legend, they are symbols of the dangers of hubris, of the way that a single curse can bring doom to those who forget the lessons of the past. In the ancient forests of Ireland and Scotland, where the trees seem to whisper secrets to those who listen closely, tales of witches have been passed down through generations. These stories are not just about women who wielded magic, but about those who bore the weight of curses so powerful they could shape the fate of entire clans. In the mists and shadows of the Celtic lands, the figure of the cursed witch looms large, a reminder of the thin line between the natural and the supernatural, between the healer and the harbinger of doom. The Druids, the spiritual leaders of the Celts, were revered for their deep connection to the earth and the otherworld. They were the keepers of ancient knowledge, able to harness the power of nature to heal or to harm. But within this power lay a dark potential, a curse that could befall those who crossed boundaries, who sought too much, or who invoked the anger of the spirits. A witch in Celtic mythology was often someone who had strayed too far, who had dared to wield powers that were meant to be respected, not controlled. One of the most haunting tales from Celtic mythology is that of the Cailleach, an ancient witch goddess who is said to have shaped the very landscape of Scotland. The Cailleach is often depicted as an old woman with the power to control the weather, to summon storms, and to bring the harshness of winter upon the land. Her curse was not one of words, but of actions. It is said that she would strike the earth with her staff, turning fertile fields into barren rocks, or that she would unleash a flood to wash away entire villages. The Cailleach's curse was one of nature itself turning against humanity, a force so powerful that it could not be resisted, only endured. The story of the Cailleach is a chilling reminder of the power of curses in Celtic mythology. Unlike the curses of other cultures, which often targeted individuals, the curses of the Cailleach were vast, affecting the land and the people who depended on it. Her tale is one of survival in the face of an unstoppable force, of communities huddling together against the cold, praying for mercy from a power that was both feared and revered. The Cailleach's curse was not just a punishment, but a test, a trial that would determine who was strong enough to endure the hardships of life in the Celtic lands. In Irish mythology, the figure of the Banshee, or Bean Sea, is another example of the cursed witch. The Banshee is not a witch in the traditional sense, but a spirit who foretells death, her wailing cry a curse that chills the blood. It is said that the Banshee was once a woman who was wronged in life, whose pain was so great that it echoed into the afterlife, turning her into a harbinger of doom. Her curse is one of knowledge, the terrible gift of knowing when death is near. The Banshee's cry is a sound that no one wishes to hear, for it means that a life will soon be taken, that grief and sorrow are on the horizon. The Banshee's curse is not one of malice, but of inevitability. Her presence is a reminder that death is a part of life, that no one can escape their fate. In the quiet of the night, when the wind howls through the trees, the cry of the Banshee is a sound that sends shivers down the spine, a reminder that the other world is never far away, and that the boundary between the living and the dead is thinner than we might like to believe. The Banshee's curse is a reflection of the Celtic belief in fate, and the idea that some things are beyond our control, and that to resist them is to bring even greater suffering. In Scottish folklore, the tale of the Witch of Laggan is another story of a cursed witch. The Witch of Laggan was said to be a woman of great beauty and power, who was cursed by a jealous rival to lose everything she held dear. Her curse was one of loss. Her family, her home, and her happiness were all taken from her, leaving her a shadow of her former self. The Witch of Laggan's story is one of despair, of a woman who was driven to madness by the weight of her curse, who wandered the hills and valleys of Scotland, seeking solace but finding none. The Witch of Laggan's curse is a powerful symbol of the destructive power of envy and jealousy. Her story is a reminder that curses are not always the result of evil deeds, but can be the product of the darkest emotions, of the pain and suffering that we inflict on each other out of spite or fear. The Witch of Laggan's tale is a tragic one, a story of a woman who was consumed by the very power that once made her strong, who was brought low by a curse that she could not escape. Celtic mythology is filled with stories of witches and curses, of powerful women who walked the line between the natural and the supernatural, who wielded powers that could heal or harm. The role of the Druids in these stories cannot be overstated. They were the mediators between the human and the otherworldly, the ones who could lift a curse or cast one, depending on the needs of the moment. But even the Druids knew that some curses were too powerful to be controlled, that some forces were better left alone. The cursed witches of Celtic mythology are not just figures of fear, they are symbols of the fragility of life, of the way that power can corrupt and destroy, and of the dangers of seeking to control forces that are beyond human understanding. Their stories are filled with sorrow and loss, with the pain of curses that cannot be undone, and with the hope that, in the end, there might be some measure of peace. In the quiet corners of Ireland and Scotland, where the past is never far from the present, the tales of these witches linger, a reminder of the power of belief and the way that a single curse can change everything. In the stillness of the night, when the moon hangs low in the sky and the world is bathed in silver light, the stories of these cursed witches come alive. They are not just tales of magic and mystery, but of the human heart, of the emotions that drive us to seek power, to inflict pain, and to endure suffering. The cursed witches of Celtic mythology are more than just characters in a story. They are reflections of ourselves, of the darkness that lies within us all, and of the hope that, Even in the face of the most terrible curse, we might find the strength to carry on. In the darkened corners of medieval Europe and the early American colonies, fear and superstition wove their shadows over entire communities. It was a time when a whisper could seal a fate, and an accusation could mean death. The witch trials, with their grim spectacles and chilling confessions, were fueled by a blend of paranoia and the belief in curses that could bring about disaster or doom. These trials were not just about punishing the guilty, they were about cursing the innocent, and the impact of these actions rippled through history, leaving scars that still echo today. The witch trials were a horrifying chapter in human history, marked by scenes of hysteria and heartache. In towns and villages, accusations flew like wildfire. A neighbor's cow fell ill, or a child became ill, and suddenly, suspicion turned towards those deemed different, those who did not fit neatly into the mold of accepted society. Women, in particular, were targeted with brutal efficiency. They were often accused of witchcraft based on little more than the fact that they were solitary or had knowledge of herbs. The accusations were rooted in a belief that witches were responsible for all manner of misfortune, from crop failures to sudden deaths. One of the most haunting elements of these trials was the use of curses as evidence. In a society steeped in fear of the supernatural, the idea that someone could have cursed another person seemed all too plausible. Accusations of witchcraft often came with claims of having been cursed or bewitched. These curses were believed to cause sickness, madness, or death. The accused were often subjected to painful tests designed to reveal their supposed guilt. The infamous swimming test involved tying a suspect's hands and feet and throwing them into a body of water. If they sank, they were deemed innocent but often drowned. If they floated, they were considered guilty and condemned. This test was based on the belief that witches, having renounced their baptism, would float as an act of defiance against God's laws. The impact of these trials on the perception of witches and curses was profound. Witches, once thought to be figures of power and mystery, became symbols of malevolence and danger. The very concept of a curse transformed from a vague superstition into a tangible accusation that could destroy lives. The trials were not just about proving guilt, they were about instilling fear and reinforcing societal norms. The accused, often innocent and powerless, were made scapegoats for the troubles of their communities. Their suffering was a grim spectacle meant to reassure the masses that justice was being served, even as it furthered the cycle of fear and violence. In Salem, Massachusetts, the infamous witch trials of 1692 exemplify the horror of such periods. The trials began with a group of young girls claiming to be afflicted by witches. Their accusations, driven by a mixture of personal vendettas and the prevailing atmosphere of fear, led to a series of trials that would become synonymous with injustice. The accused, many of whom were women with no means to defend themselves, faced accusations of witchcraft and curses that were often based on little more than hearsay and superstition. The trials, conducted with a fervor that left no room for doubt or defense, resulted in the execution of 20 individuals and the imprisonment of many more. The Salem witch trials, like those in Europe, were marked by a chilling disregard for truth and justice. Confessions were often obtained under duress, with accused witches admitting to curses they had never cast, simply to avoid the cruel punishment that awaited them. The trials and the resulting executions were not just about punishing supposed witches, they were about creating a spectacle of fear that would ensure compliance and reinforce societal control. The legacy of the Salem witch trials is a stark reminder of how easily fear can become a weapon against the innocent, and how curses, whether real or imagined, can lead to unimaginable suffering. The impact of these trials extended beyond the immediate victims. The fear of witchcraft and curses became ingrained in the culture, influencing how societies perceived both the supernatural and the people they accused of engaging with it. The witch trials created a precedent for how society dealt with those it deemed different or threatening. The legacy of these trials is a haunting reminder of the power of fear and the devastating effects of allowing superstition to govern justice. In the aftermath of the witch trials, the memory of those accused and the injustices they suffered became a poignant symbol of the dangers of unchecked fear and suspicion. The trials left behind a legacy of pain and sorrow, a testament to the human cost of believing in curses and seeking to blame others for misfortune. The stories of the innocent lives lost in these trials are a sobering reminder of the need for compassion and understanding in the face of fear and uncertainty. The echoes of the witch trials continue to resonate, reminding us of the destructive power of fear and the importance of justice and empathy. The cursed witches of history are not just figures of myth and legend, they are symbols of the suffering that arises when fear outweighs reason, and when curses become a tool for persecution rather than a reflection of reality. Their stories are a chilling reminder of the need to confront the darkness within ourselves and to strive for a world where justice and understanding prevail over fear and ignorance. In the dimly lit corners of old cottages and shadowy forests, a chilling partnership has long haunted the whispers of folklore, the witch and her familiar. These creatures, often portrayed as loyal companions, were believed to possess a dark and mystical bond with their witch masters. They were more than mere pets. They were thought to be vessels for cursed powers, bringing a blend of fear and sympathy to their role in witchcraft. The idea of familiars is shrouded in mystery and dread. These animals were believed to be imbued with magical abilities, serving as intermediaries between the witch and the supernatural world. A familiar could take many forms: a cat with piercing eyes, a toad with a croak that sent chills down the spine, or even a raven whose cough seemed to echo with dark promises. The nature of these creatures, while enigmatic, was always linked to the idea of curses and dark magic. In the haunted woods of medieval Europe, where the air seemed to crackle with secrets, tales of cursed animals abound. One of the most haunting stories is that of a witch named Isolde and her raven companion, Grim. Grim was no ordinary raven. He was said to be a creature of darkness, with feathers as black as a starless night and eyes that glowed with an eerie light. Isolde and Grim were inseparable, their bond so deep that it was said they shared a single soul. They roamed the forests together, casting spells and performing rituals that kept them feared and revered by those who lived nearby. But Grim's loyalty came at a cost. The villagers believed that Grim was a source of Isolde's dark power, that his presence alone could bring misfortune. Stories spread of crops failing and livestock falling ill whenever Grim was near. The fear grew so intense that the villagers finally decided to take matters into their own hands. One cold winter's night, they captured Grim, believing that by destroying him, they could rid themselves of Isolde's curse. Isolde's grief was unbearable. She tried to save Grim, but the villagers were determined. They burned the raven, and as the flames consumed him, a storm of unimaginable fury swept through the village. Houses were torn apart, trees uprooted, and the earth itself seemed to tremble. The villagers were left in ruins, and the tale of Isolde and Grim became a stark reminder of the dangerous intersection of love and curses. The bond between a witch and her familiar was not to be taken lightly, for it was a connection that could bring both profound power and devastating consequences. In the folklore of the American colonies, the story of a witch named Eliza and her cat, Midnight, holds a similarly tragic note. Eliza was an old woman living on the edge of a small village, known for her strange ways and the unsettling presence of her black cat. Midnight was her constant companion, his eyes glinting with a knowing gleam that unnerved those who saw him. The villagers whispered that Midnight was more than a mere cat, that he was a conduit for Eliza's dark magic. One fateful day, a plague swept through the village, bringing with it sickness and death. The villagers, desperate and frightened, looked for someone to blame. Eliza and Midnight became the focus of their fears. They accused Eliza of cursing the village, and in their blind anger, they seized Midnight, believing that destroying the cat would break the curse. Eliza's heart broke as she watched Midnight suffer. She knew that the cat was not the source of the curse, but the victim of their hysteria. In a final act of defiance, Eliza tried to protect her beloved companion, but the villagers were relentless. They killed Midnight, and as his last cry echoed through the night, a mysterious fog rolled into the village. The plague intensified, claiming more lives and leaving the village in despair. Eliza's story, like Isolde's, is a haunting reminder of the tragic fates that befell those connected to cursed familiars. These stories reveal the deep emotional ties between witches and their animal companions, bonds that were often misunderstood and feared. The familiars, though seen as agents of dark power, were also victims of human ignorance and cruelty. Their suffering mirrored the pain of their witch masters, and their deaths were a powerful symbol of the tragic consequences of prejudice and fear. The concept of familiars in witchcraft also carries a weight of sorrowful beauty. These animals were believed to be deeply intertwined with the magical practices of their witch companions. They were not just pets, but partners in a world where magic and curses were a reality. The familiar's presence was both a blessing and a curse, a symbol of the power that could be wielded and the peril that came with it. In the quiet moments of reflection, the stories of witches and their cursed animal companions serve as a poignant reminder of the complex nature of magic and the profound connections between those who wield it. The familiars, with their darkened eyes and supernatural grace, were more than just symbols of witchcraft. They were manifestations of the deep and often tragic bonds that existed between humans and the world beyond their understanding. Their stories are etched into the fabric of folklore, a testament to the enduring power of love, fear, and the haunting echoes of curses that still resonate today. In the heart of darkness, where pain festers and old wounds never heal, the most chilling curses are born not from magic but from raw, searing revenge. These curses are the product of betrayal and anguish, wielded with a ferocity that turns love into hatred and sorrow into a relentless pursuit of retribution. The stories of vengeful witches are haunting reminders of how deep the human desire for revenge can cut, leaving scars that echo through history. One such story is that of Morgana Le Fay, a name that conjures up images of dark enchantment and unyielding vengeance. Morgana, a powerful sorceress in Arthurian legend, was driven by a burning desire for revenge against King Arthur and his knights. Her hatred was not merely personal, it was rooted in betrayal and a desire to reclaim her lost power. Morgana's curses were infamous for their cruelty and effectiveness. She used her magic to exact revenge on those who had wronged her, her spells causing suffering that seemed almost poetic in its cruelty. One of the most haunting episodes in Morgana's tale is her curse on Arthur's kingdom. It was said that she unleashed a blight upon the land, causing crops to wither and rivers to dry up. The kingdom, once flourishing and vibrant, was reduced to a desolate wasteland. The people suffered terribly, their pleas for relief unanswered as Morgana's vengeance brought their very survival into question. This curse, driven by a heart full of rage and betrayal, left a legacy of suffering that marked Morgana as a figure of fear and sorrow. In a different corner of the world, the tale of La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, is a sorrowful story of revenge and loss. According to legend, La Llorona was a woman who, in a fit of jealousy and rage, drowned her children in a river. Overcome with remorse, she took her own life, only to return as a vengeful spirit searching for her lost children. Her curse was not just one of vengeance, but of eternal suffering. Her wails, heard in the dead of night, are said to be a warning to those who hear them, a chilling reminder of the depths of a mother's rage and the price of her grief. The legend of La Llorona has a psychological impact that reaches deep into the soul. The idea that a mother's wrath could manifest as a ghostly, grieving figure, forever seeking her lost children, evokes a profound sense of dread. It touches on fears of parental failure and the eternal consequences of unredeemed sins. The story serves as a chilling reminder of how revenge can transform into an endless cycle of pain and regret, haunting both the living and the dead. In the realm of European folklore, the tale of the Witch of Endor provides another example of revenge-driven curses. The Witch of Endor, a figure from the Bible, is known for her role in summoning the spirit of the prophet Samuel. Her act was driven by a deep-seated anger and desperation, seeking revenge against those who had wronged her. The curse she unleashed was one of foreboding and despair, a prophecy that foretold doom and destruction. Her actions had a lasting impact on those around her, spreading fear and uncertainty among the people who sought her out. The psychological impact of such curses is profound. They tap into the darkest corners of human nature, where vengeance and hatred can twist even the most benign intentions into something monstrous. The act of cursing someone out of revenge not only causes harm, but also creates a cycle of suffering that can last for generations. It distorts the natural order, turning personal grievances into widespread misfortune and leaving behind a legacy of fear and sorrow. The societal impact of revenge-driven curses is equally significant. These curses often serve as a means of controlling or punishing those who have wronged others. They are a way of enforcing social norms and maintaining power, using fear and intimidation to ensure compliance. In many cases, the act of cursing someone out of revenge can disrupt entire communities, spreading fear and mistrust among people who are already vulnerable. The resulting chaos often leaves a lasting scar on the collective consciousness, reinforcing the belief that vengeance is a powerful and dangerous force. The story of the vengeful witch is a dark and poignant one, filled with sorrow and loss. These witches, driven by rage and betrayal, unleash curses that leave deep and lasting marks on the world. Their stories are not just about magical power, but about the human capacity for vengeance and the consequences of allowing anger to dictate one's actions. The curses they cast are a reminder of how destructive revenge can be, turning personal grievances into widespread suffering and leaving a legacy of fear that echoes through history. In the grand halls of power, where royalty lives in opulence and security, there lurks a chilling possibility: the wrath of a scorned witch. These ancient tales of cursed royalty are more than mere stories. They are vivid reminders of how deeply a curse can scar a kingdom and reshape the fate of a dynasty. The impact of such curses reverberates through history, leaving behind a trail of despair and misfortune that seems almost otherworldly. One of the most haunting tales is that of Sleeping Beauty, a story that has echoed through centuries with its chilling blend of magic and malice. According to the legend, a beautiful princess was cursed by an evil witch at her christening. In a fit of jealousy and rage, the witch proclaimed that the princess would prick her finger on a spinning wheel and fall into an endless sleep, only to be awakened by true love's kiss. This curse was not just a personal vendetta, it was a dark prophecy that would cast a long shadow over the entire kingdom. The curse of Sleeping Beauty is not merely about an individual's fate, but about the profound impact on an entire realm. As the princess fell into her enchanted slumber, the entire kingdom was cast into a state of frozen despair. The once vibrant and bustling court became a silent, lifeless place, caught in the grip of an endless night. Gardens withered, halls became dusty, and the laughter of the court was replaced by an eerie silence. The curse extended beyond the princess herself, affecting everyone who lived within the kingdom's borders. The story captures the tragic essence of how one witch's bitterness can bring an entire kingdom to its knees. The tale of the Sleeping Beauty curse also reflects the deep-seated fears of those in power. For royalty, who are accustomed to control and privilege, the idea of being at the mercy of a witch's curse represents a loss of power that is both frightening and humiliating. The curse becomes a symbol of vulnerability, showing that no matter how high one's status, they are not immune to the destructive forces of magic and revenge. The impact on the royal family is devastating, with the curse serving as a stark reminder of how fragile their control over their destiny can be. Another chilling tale involves the story of Marie Antoinette, the last queen of France before the French Revolution. Legend has it that a sorceress, wronged by the royal family, placed a curse on Marie Antoinette and her family. The curse was said to foretell the fall of the monarchy and the suffering that would befall them. As the curse began to unfold, Marie Antoinette and her family faced a series of tragic events. The opulence of the court was replaced by chaos and violence, culminating in the fall of the French monarchy and the execution of Marie Antoinette. The story is a haunting example of how a curse can intertwine with historical events, amplifying the tragedy of real-life events with a sense of supernatural inevitability. In the annals of history, the tale of the cursed Scottish King Macbeth stands out as a dark example of how witchcraft can affect royalty. The witch's prophecy, foretelling Macbeth's rise to power and his eventual downfall, played a central role in the tragic events of his reign. The witches, with their eerie predictions, set in motion a series of actions driven by fear and ambition. Macbeth's curse was not just about his personal fate, it was about the turmoil and bloodshed that ensued. The curse seemed to loom over Macbeth's rule, leading him into a spiral of madness and murder, which ultimately resulted in his downfall. The story illustrates how the influence of a curse can extend far beyond the individual, affecting the stability of a whole kingdom. These stories of cursed royalty reveal a chilling truth: the power of a witch's curse can extend far beyond the individual, impacting entire kingdoms and dynasties. The curses often represent more than just personal vendettas; they are symbols of the deep-seated fears and vulnerabilities of those in power. The tales capture the profound and often tragic effects of magic and revenge, showing how a single curse can reshape the fate of an entire realm. The echoes of these ancient stories serve as a reminder of the enduring power of curses and the dark shadows they cast over the lives of those they touch. In the darkest corners of folklore, there lurks a chilling fate for witches: eternal life. This curse, often desired for its promise of endless power and knowledge, turns out to be a torment beyond imagination. Living forever is not the gift many believe it to be; it is a sentence of perpetual suffering and loneliness, where the passage of time becomes both a torment and a haunting reminder of one's endless solitude. Consider the tale of the immortal witch, a figure condemned to live through the ages, unable to die and forever witnessing the world change in ways that leave her behind. For these witches, immortality is not a blessing but a cruel irony. They are doomed to watch as loved ones and even entire civilizations rise and fall, while they remain untouched by time's passage. Each day is a reminder of their isolation, a constant echo of a life that is always just out of reach. One such figure is the legend of the Witch of Endor. In the biblical story, she is a mysterious figure with the power to summon spirits. Her curse of immortality is intertwined with her role as a medium who cannot find peace or rest. The Witch of Endor is forced to continue her dark work across the centuries, forever haunted by the spirits she conjures and unable to escape the burden of her cursed existence. Her story is a haunting portrayal of how immortality can trap a soul in a perpetual state of longing and despair. In Russian folklore, the tale of Baba Yaga offers another glimpse into the torment of eternal life. Baba Yaga, the fearsome witch who lives in a hut on chicken legs, is often depicted as a timeless creature, her existence stretching back through the ages. Her immortality, however, is not a gift but a punishment. She is cursed to live alone in her forest home, isolated from human contact and forever bound to the dark magic she wields. The endless cycles of solitude and the loss of any meaningful connection make her immortality a grim fate, reflecting the psychological burden of eternal life. The psychological toll of immortality is profound. The endless passage of time brings with it a deep sense of despair and disillusionment. Immortal witches are forced to grapple with the knowledge that their lives, though long, lack the normal markers of human existence, the joys of a finite life, the comfort of shared experiences, and the simple peace of a natural end. Each day stretches into an eternity, filled with the weight of countless memories and the pain of watching the world change without them. This existential burden can lead to a profound sense of alienation. Immortal witches are forever separated from the cycles of life and death that define human experience. They live through the rise and fall of empires, the shifting sands of culture, and the loss of personal connections. Each new era brings new faces and new challenges, but the immortal witch remains a solitary figure, trapped in a world that constantly evolves while she remains unchanging. Famous immortal witches in literature and mythology further illustrate the harrowing nature of eternal life. In the realm of literature, the character of the immortal witch often embodies this tragic fate. In the works of J.K. Rowling, for example, the character of Bellatrix Lestrange is portrayed as an immortal being in her madness, driven by an endless pursuit of power and destruction. Her immortality, while not explicitly stated as a curse, serves as a backdrop to her ceaseless ambition and ultimate despair. Similarly, in classical mythology, the story of the goddess Hecate presents another perspective on immortality. Hecate, the goddess of magic and witchcraft, is often depicted as an eternal figure, wielding power over the supernatural realm. Her immortality, however, comes with the price of eternal vigilance and the burden of overseeing the dark forces of magic. The isolation and responsibility that come with her eternal existence reflect the complex and often sorrowful nature of immortal life. The immortal witch's tale is one of profound loneliness and unending sorrow. The curse of eternal life is a heavy burden, stripping away the simple joys and comforts of mortal existence. These witches, trapped in a cycle of eternal life, are forced to confront the harsh reality of their endless solitude. Their stories are a testament to the haunting effects of immortality, revealing the deep emotional and psychological toll of living forever. The weight of their eternal existence serves as a powerful reminder of the true cost of a life unbound by time. In the heart of dark legends and haunted lore lies a chilling truth: curses can extend beyond the individual, reaching into the very essence of a bloodline. These curses, passed from one generation to the next, transform entire families into vessels of tragedy, each member doomed to suffer from the dark magic of their ancestors. The stories of cursed bloodlines are filled with sorrow and despair, as the weight of an ancient wrong echoes through the ages, affecting all who carry the tainted blood. One such haunting tale is that of the House of Blackwood, a family whose history is marred by a curse that has shaped their fate for centuries. The curse began with an act of betrayal by the family's matriarch, who, in her quest for power, wronged a powerful sorceress. The sorceress, vengeful and unforgiving, cast a curse that would affect the entire bloodline. From that moment on, every member of the Blackwood family was destined to face misfortune and suffering. The curse manifested in various ways. Members of the Blackwood family experienced untimely deaths, failed relationships, and constant financial ruin. Each generation bore the mark of the curse, as if it were a shadow that followed them wherever they went. The family's history became a tapestry of sorrow, woven with threads of grief and despair. The curse seemed to ensure that no matter how hard they tried to escape their fate, they were always pulled back into the darkness of their ancestral wrongs. One of the most poignant stories from the House of Blackwood is that of Eliza Blackwood, a young woman who, despite her best efforts to lead a normal life, was ensnared by the curse's grip. Eliza's life was marked by a series of tragic events: the loss of her beloved fiancé, the collapse of her business, and the constant sense of being watched by unseen forces. Her story is a heartbreaking example of how a curse can permeate every aspect of a person's life, turning their attempts at happiness into a continuous cycle of suffering. In another haunting tale, the curse of the Thorn family stands as a chilling reminder of the power of hereditary magic. The Thorn family was once powerful and influential, but their fortunes changed when a member of their lineage wronged a witch who had been wronged by the Thorn patriarch. In retaliation, the witch cursed the entire bloodline, ensuring that every generation would be marked by tragedy and misfortune. The curse of the Thorns was particularly insidious, affecting their relationships and personal happiness. Marriages were plagued by betrayal and heartbreak, and children were born with a propensity for ill health and misfortune. The Thorns tried to break the curse through various means, from consulting powerful sorcerers to performing ancient rituals, but nothing could lift the shadow that hung over their bloodline. The tale of the Thorn family is a somber reflection on the idea that once a curse takes hold, it can be incredibly difficult to escape its grip. The story of the cursed bloodline of the Montagues and Capulets, made famous by Shakespeare's tragic play, also provides a poignant look at hereditary curses. Although not strictly about witches, the tale speaks to the concept of a family curse affecting future generations. The feud between these two families was said to be the result of an ancient curse, which perpetuated the cycle of violence and tragedy that ultimately led to the deaths of the young lovers Romeo and Juliet. The curse seemed to dictate that the families would be locked in a cycle of hatred and conflict, affecting each generation with its dark legacy. These tales of cursed bloodlines illustrate the profound and often devastating effects of magical curses that extend beyond the individual. They reveal a pattern of recurring suffering and misfortune, passed down from one generation to the next. The weight of such a curse can shape the very identity of a family, turning their lives into a continuous struggle against the shadows of their past. The emotional impact of these curses is profound. Imagine growing up knowing that your family's misfortune is not a matter of chance, but the result of an ancient wrong. Each personal setback, each heartbreak, becomes a reminder of the curse that binds you to a legacy of despair. The psychological toll of such a curse can be overwhelming, as the sense of being trapped in a cycle of suffering erodes hope and joy. For those affected by a cursed bloodline, the struggle is not just about overcoming individual challenges, but about confronting the weight of a dark legacy. The curse becomes a central part of their identity, shaping their experiences and interactions with the world. The story of each cursed bloodline is a testament to the power of magic to inflict lasting harm, transforming the lives of those who inherit its dark influence. In the end, the curse of a witch's bloodline is a powerful and haunting concept, one that speaks to the enduring impact of magical retribution. These stories remind us of the profound ways in which curses can shape and define the lives of those who bear their mark, turning the legacy of a single act of wrongdoing into a lifetime of suffering for generations to come. In the delicate dance of love, where hearts intertwine and souls seek solace in one another, there lurks a dark shadow, the witch's curse. These curses, cast with a mix of malice and jealousy, twist the purity of love into a nightmarish struggle, leaving those ensnared by them to suffer through endless pain and heartbreak. The stories of such curses are a chilling reminder of how deeply magic can disrupt the most tender and sacred of human emotions. One haunting tale is that of the cursed lovers in the legend of the Heartbroken Maiden. A beautiful young woman fell deeply in love with a prince, their romance blossoming like a flower in spring. Their love was pure, their future seemingly bright. But a vengeful witch, scorned by the prince's rejection of her advances, cast a dreadful curse upon the lovers. The curse was a cruel twist of fate. No matter how deeply they loved each other, their relationship would be doomed to endless heartbreak. The couple's love, which should have been a source of joy, became a torment. Every time they met, some new obstacle would arise: misunderstandings, betrayal, and tragic misfortune. Their hearts, though intertwined, were constantly pulled apart by the invisible threads of the curse. The pain of loving someone so deeply, yet never being able to fully be together, drove them to the brink of despair. Their love was a constant reminder of their torment, each embrace tinged with the agony of knowing it would never last. In another heartbreaking story, the tale of the cursed family of love unfolds with a similar theme of romantic despair. This curse was not just about individual lovers, but an entire family, bound by a magical affliction that ruined their chances of happiness and love. According to the legend, a powerful sorceress, wronged by a member of this family, placed a curse on all their future generations. The curse decreed that each family member would find love only to have it end in tragedy or betrayal. Throughout the family's history, each member experienced love that seemed almost perfect, only to be shattered by unforeseen and tragic events. Marriages were marred by infidelity, and relationships ended in heartbreak. The emotional toll on the family was immense. Their lives became a series of sorrowful love stories, each one a painful echo of the last. The curse turned the pursuit of love into a cruel game, where every hopeful glance and tender touch only led to more suffering. The impact of these curses on human emotions is profound. Imagine the agony of loving someone with every fiber of your being, only to be continuously thwarted by an invisible force. Each gesture of affection, each whispered promise, becomes a bitter reminder of the curse that keeps love at bay. The emotional turmoil is relentless, joy is fleeting, and sorrow becomes a constant companion. The heartache of knowing that love is within reach yet always just out of grasp can be utterly devastating, eroding hope and trust in the process. These curses also influence societal norms and relationships. In the presence of such curses, love becomes something to be feared rather than cherished. The stories of cursed lovers serve as grim warnings, shaping how people view romance and relationships. Societies may become wary of love, associating it with the potential for betrayal and despair. The curses create an atmosphere where love is viewed with suspicion, and the once beautiful notion of romantic connection becomes tainted by fear and superstition. The societal impact extends beyond individual relationships. The stories of cursed lovers often reflect broader cultural anxieties about the power of magic and the fragility of human emotions. These curses challenge the notion of love as an invincible force, showing instead how easily it can be disrupted by external forces. The tales serve as a reminder of the limits of human control over the forces of fate and the often devastating consequences of anger and revenge. The legends of cursed love are haunting not only for their tragic outcomes, but for the way they mirror our deepest fears about the nature of love. They reveal the vulnerability of our hearts and the power of curses to transform even the most beautiful emotions into sources of profound suffering. The stories serve as chilling reminders of how love, a force we cherish and hold dear, can become a battleground where magic and vengeance collide, leaving scars that last a lifetime. In the shadows of folklore, there lurks a fearsome form of witchcraft, curses that reach beyond death, inflicting eternal torment upon the souls of the damned. These dark spells, cast by vengeful witches, are not content with merely ending lives. They condemn their victims to suffer in the afterlife, ensuring that their agony continues long after their mortal days have ended. Such curses represent the ultimate cruelty, trapping souls in a nightmarish existence where there is no escape, no rest, and no peace. One of the most chilling stories is that of the cursed soul of Agatha, a woman wronged by a powerful sorceress. Agatha's life was marked by tragedy, but it was in her final moments that the true horror of the curse was revealed. The sorceress, driven by unrelenting vengeance, decreed that Agatha would not find peace in death. Her curse ensured that Agatha's spirit would be condemned to wander the earth for eternity, suffering in the shadows of her own sorrow. Agatha's soul was bound to a desolate, fog-covered moor, where she is said to appear as a ghostly figure, her wails echoing through the night. Her curse is a profound reminder of the torment that can await those who are marked by witchcraft, turning the afterlife into a realm of endless suffering. Another haunting tale is that of the cursed Roman emperor, whose story reflects the dark power of death-related curses. The emperor, infamous for his cruelty and tyranny, was targeted by a witch whose family had been wronged by his harsh rule. As the emperor lay on his deathbed, the witch placed a curse upon him, vowing that his soul would be condemned to eternal damnation. The curse promised that his spirit would be trapped in a hellish realm, subjected to unending torment and agony. The emperor's death was not a release, but the beginning of a new, more horrific chapter. His spirit was said to be doomed to an endless cycle of suffering, a chilling reminder of the witch's power to inflict eternal retribution. The story of the hanged witch is another example of how death-related curses can extend suffering beyond the grave. The witch, executed for her dark deeds, left behind a final curse that promised her torment would continue long after her execution. She vowed that anyone who wronged her would suffer in the afterlife, their souls bound to the same agony that had been inflicted upon her. Her curse was said to have the power to trap souls in a spectral noose, hanging forever in a realm of despair. The legend of the hanged witch serves as a grim reminder of how curses can transform death into a form of endless punishment. These stories reveal the cultural and religious significance of death-related curses. In many cultures, death is seen not as an end, but as a transition to another state of existence. The belief in an afterlife and the possibility of eternal punishment or reward shapes the way people view curses. Curses that inflict suffering beyond death tap into deep-seated fears about the nature of the afterlife and the possibility of eternal damnation. They reflect the cultural anxieties about the consequences of wrongdoing and the power of supernatural forces to enforce justice or vengeance. In various religious traditions, the concept of eternal punishment is a powerful and fearsome element. The idea of being condemned to suffer for eternity taps into fundamental fears about the nature of existence and the consequences of moral failings. These curses are a way of expressing the ultimate consequences of wrongdoing, extending the idea of divine retribution to the afterlife. They serve as stark reminders of the power of magic and the lasting impact of supernatural forces on the human soul. The emotional impact of death-related curses is profound. The thought of suffering eternally, unable to escape or find peace, evokes a deep sense of dread and horror. The idea that one's torment could extend beyond the grave transforms death from a release into a continuation of agony. The stories of cursed souls trapped in perpetual suffering are haunting and unsettling, reflecting the darkest aspects of human fears about the afterlife and the power of witchcraft. These curses also highlight the ways in which fear and vengeance can shape the perception of death and the afterlife. The stories of eternal torment reflect the deep-seated belief in the power of supernatural forces to enforce moral justice and the fear of what awaits beyond death for those who have wronged others. They serve as chilling reminders of the consequences of crossing those who wield dark magic and the enduring impact of their curses. In the end, the tales of death-related curses reveal the profound and often terrifying ways in which witchcraft can shape human fears and beliefs about the afterlife. They show how the power of curses can transform death from a simple end into a realm of endless suffering, where the torment of the soul continues long after the body has ceased to live. The stories of cursed souls are a haunting testament to the enduring impact of supernatural forces and the dark possibilities that lie beyond the grave. In the dim glow of our modern world, the haunting specter of cursed witches continues to captivate and terrify. While the stories of ancient curses might seem distant, their essence lives on, evolving with our times. Today, cursed witches still cast long shadows in contemporary literature, film, and media, keeping their chilling grip on our collective imagination. In the heart of modern folklore, the concept of the cursed witch has transformed but remains as poignant as ever. The classic image of the witch, a malevolent figure casting spells from a hidden lair, has adapted to fit the anxieties and fears of contemporary society. No longer just ancient stories told by firesides, these modern witches carry the weight of curses that reflect our current fears and fascinations. They embody the terrors of our times, their curses mirroring the darkness that lurks in our everyday lives. Contemporary literature often explores these cursed witches with a mix of horror and empathy. Modern novels depict witches who are both feared and pitied, their curses often rooted in personal betrayals and tragic histories. In these stories, the witch's curse is not just about supernatural retribution, but also a reflection of deep emotional wounds and unresolved conflicts. The curse becomes a metaphor for personal suffering and the inescapable past, turning the witch into a complex figure trapped between vengeance and sorrow. In film, the cursed witch has taken on new forms, ranging from the classic horror icon to nuanced characters with rich backstories. Movies like The Witch and Hereditary present witches whose curses are intricately tied to their personal histories and family tragedies. The modern witch is no longer just a figure of fear, but a symbol of deeper, more unsettling themes. The curse she bears is often a manifestation of her inner turmoil and the dark consequences of her actions or those done to her. Television series, too, have embraced the cursed witch, weaving her into stories that blend supernatural elements with contemporary issues. Shows like American Horror Story and Charmed portray witches who grapple with curses that affect their lives in profound ways. These modern depictions explore how curses influence relationships, personal growth, and the struggle for redemption. The witch's curse becomes a tool for exploring complex emotional and psychological landscapes, making the stories both thrilling and deeply relatable. The fascination with cursed witches in popular culture reflects our ongoing preoccupation with the darker sides of human nature. These tales offer a way to confront our fears and anxieties in a controlled environment. They allow us to explore the consequences of betrayal, the pain of loss, and the desire for revenge. The cursed witch, with her blend of supernatural power and human vulnerability, becomes a compelling figure for examining our deepest fears and desires. The modern curse often carries a dual nature. It is both a source of horror and a lens through which we can examine our own lives. The witch's curse serves as a powerful metaphor for the ways in which past actions and unresolved issues can shape our present and future. It reflects the belief that our personal histories have a profound impact on our lives, echoing the ancient fears that once drove people to tell tales of cursed witches. This evolving portrayal of the cursed witch taps into our universal fears of being haunted by our past mistakes and the consequences of our actions. It mirrors our anxieties about the unknown and the uncontrollable forces that might shape our lives. The witch's curse becomes a reflection of our own struggles, making her both a figure of terror and a symbol of our deepest fears. As we navigate a world filled with uncertainties and complexities, the modern stories of cursed witches offer a way to confront and understand these fears. They provide a narrative space where we can explore the consequences of our actions and the shadows of our past, all while being entertained by thrilling and imaginative tales. The ongoing fascination with cursed witches is a testament to the enduring power of these stories to resonate with our deepest emotions and fears. In the end, the modern witch's curse remains a powerful and evocative concept. It captures our fears of the unknown, the past, and the consequences of our actions, offering a way to explore these themes through captivating and often terrifying stories. The figure of the cursed witch continues to haunt our imaginations, reflecting our darkest fears and our eternal fascination with the supernatural. In the darkest corners of folklore, there lies a glimmer of hope, the possibility of breaking a curse and finding redemption. Even the most tormented souls, bound by ancient spells and bitter revenge, can find a path to peace. The stories of cursed witches who ultimately find redemption are not only deeply moving but also a testament to the power of forgiveness, change, and the possibility of renewal. One of the most poignant tales is that of Ira, a witch condemned to eternal winter by a vengeful rival. Ira's curse turned her into a specter of frost and cold, casting a perpetual winter over her once thriving village. Her heart was as frozen as the land she cursed, trapped in a cycle of sorrow and isolation. Yet, a brave young woman from the village, driven by compassion and love, sought to break the curse. With a heart full of empathy and a deep understanding of Ira's pain, she embarked on a quest to find a way to thaw the witch's icy heart. Through acts of kindness and unwavering faith in the power of redemption, she reached Ira's heart, melting the ice that bound her. Ira was finally freed from her curse, and the land began to bloom again. The story of Ira is a powerful reminder that even the coldest hearts can be warmed, and even the most bitter curses can be broken by love and understanding. In another moving story, the tale of the forgiven enchantress reveals the path to redemption through a remarkable act of self-sacrifice. This enchantress, once a powerful sorceress who used her magic for dark purposes, was cursed to live forever in a state of despair. Her once beautiful home became a desolate, haunted place, a reflection of her own tortured soul. Her curse was not only a punishment but a means of forcing her to confront her own darkness. Over time, she began to see the suffering her actions had caused and sought to atone for her sins. In a moment of profound self-realization, she used her remaining magic to help those she had wronged, sacrificing her own power and freedom in the process. Her act of redemption not only broke her curse, but also restored peace to the land she had once darkened. The tale of the forgiven enchantress is a touching illustration of how genuine remorse and selfless actions can lead to redemption and release from even the most grievous curses. The legend of the cursed maiden offers another inspiring story of breaking free from a curse. This maiden was transformed into a creature of the night, doomed to roam the earth in a state of eternal sorrow. Her curse was a result of a tragic betrayal, and her plight seemed endless. Yet, the love of a true-hearted prince, who saw beyond her cursed form to the woman within, played a crucial role in breaking the spell. Through acts of bravery and unwavering loyalty, the prince managed to lift the curse, restoring the maiden to her true form. Their love story became a symbol of the power of love to overcome even the darkest of curses, proving that redemption and renewal are possible through genuine connection and unyielding faith. These stories reflect the broader concept of redemption in witchcraft folklore. Redemption is not merely about breaking a curse, it's about transformation and healing. It involves a deep confrontation with one's past actions, a willingness to change, and the courage to seek forgiveness. The journey from curse to redemption is often fraught with pain and struggle, but it also offers the possibility of healing and peace. The process of breaking a curse usually requires more than just magical intervention. It demands personal growth, compassion, and a heartfelt desire to make amends. In many folklore traditions, the idea of redemption is deeply intertwined with themes of forgiveness and self-sacrifice. The cursed witch must often face the consequences of her actions and show genuine remorse for her deeds. It's through this process of atonement that she can earn the right to be freed from her curse. The stories of cursed witches finding redemption often highlight the transformative power of forgiveness and the profound impact of acts of selflessness and love. These tales resonate deeply because they reflect our own hopes for redemption and transformation. They remind us that even in the darkest of times, there is always a possibility for change and healing. The journey from curse to redemption is a testament to the enduring power of hope and the belief that even the most troubled souls can find peace and renewal. The folklore of breaking curses and finding redemption is a powerful narrative of transformation and healing. It shows that even those who have been bound by the darkest of curses can find a way to break free and seek forgiveness. Through acts of love, self-sacrifice, and genuine remorse, cursed witches can find their way to peace and redemption, offering a glimmer of hope to all who hear their stories. The tales of cursed witches have left an indelible mark on our collective imagination, casting a long shadow over folklore and modern perceptions of witchcraft. These stories are not just remnants of ancient fears, but vibrant narratives that continue to captivate and haunt us, reflecting our deepest anxieties and desires. From ancient myths to contemporary media, cursed witches hold a significant place in cultural history. They embody the dark power of revenge, the terror of supernatural retribution, and the complex nature of human emotions. In many ways, they are the dark mirror reflecting our own fears and struggles, magnified by the supernatural elements that give them life. These figures have become symbols of the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of betrayal, their stories resonating across time and culture. The impact of these stories on modern perceptions of witchcraft is profound. In today's world, where the mystical and the unknown still stir our imaginations, cursed witches often represent the darker side of magical lore. They challenge our understanding of witchcraft, painting it as a realm not only of power but also of profound danger and moral complexity. Through films, books, and television, the image of the cursed witch has evolved, often becoming a figure of fascination and fear, a reminder of the fine line between enchantment and peril. Contemporary media frequently revisits the motif of the cursed witch, weaving her into stories that explore themes of power, revenge, and redemption. These modern interpretations continue to evoke strong emotions, drawing on the rich tapestry of folklore to create narratives that are both thrilling and deeply relatable. The cursed witch remains a potent symbol of the consequences of crossing the boundaries of human morality and the haunting allure of the supernatural. The enduring legacy of cursed witches lies in their ability to evoke powerful emotions and provoke reflection on the nature of justice, revenge, and forgiveness. Their stories remain compelling because they tap into universal fears about the consequences of our actions and the potential for supernatural retribution. They remind us that even in a world dominated by reason and science, there are still mysteries and terrors that elude our understanding, lurking in the shadows of our collective imagination. As we grapple with the complexities of modern life, the tales of cursed witches offer a way to confront our fears and explore our deepest anxieties. They serve as a haunting reminder of the power of stories to shape our perceptions and evoke strong emotional responses. The legacy of the cursed witch endures because it speaks to our fundamental fears and desires, offering a glimpse into a world where magic and reality intertwine in unsettling ways. In the end, the stories of cursed witches continue to captivate and disturb because they reflect something deeply human. They are not just tales of supernatural terror, but explorations of our own fears, regrets, and hopes. Through their haunting narratives, they remind us of the power of folklore to capture the essence of our shared human experience and the enduring allure of the unknown.